This conference will now be recorded.
And could I ask everyone kindly mute phones until they're speaking so we don't get any feedback? Thank you. And first order of business is, and my agenda is blind because, again, my internet is off at the moment. So we have a first item on the agenda. Emily?
The first item is approval of the minutes from the December 15th, 2021 meeting.
I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. Any discussion, changes, or alterations of those minutes by anyone? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Angie, please, we need a verbal response. So Ralph Smith?
Aye.
Joanne Lepore?
Aye.
Angela? Aye. And Richard Waystack is an aye. It's a 4-0 vote. We're getting there, Emily. I'm slowly getting internet back. Next item on the agenda is check-in with members.
We had public comment, but I don't see any non-members here for public comment.
Well, we do have our esteemed selectman, Mr. Ballantyne, here. So, Mr. Ballantyne, if you have any comments you would like to make, we would be happy to entertain them. Larry, kindly unmute yourself, please.
You think I remember that by now, wouldn't you? But no, I just thank you for inviting me. As you know, our efforts now are directed towards two items, budget and warrant articles. And that's our focus at the moment. And I'm sure part of your focus as well.
It is, sir. And Emily will be speaking. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, I know I've mentioned this in past meetings, I think one of our past meetings, but I'm excited to pay, my liaison assignment has been changed a little bit to include you and the center and library. And I mentioned this in the past, but I'm really impressed with some of the programs that we're working together on between the three groups. Especially if we broaden from, say one interest mainly in elementary, there are younger kids, ones for retired, and trying to broach the middle gang. And the efforts going forward on that. So I certainly like to see that continue. That's a great effort.
Mr. Ballantyne, I think you will find with the breadth of the programs and the work that the staff of the Council on Aging are doing, they impact a tremendous number of people. Not only for those who are taking advantage of the services, but those who have been volunteering to assist in providing those services to an extent that we could not offer the range of services that we have to the taxpayers, the families, and their caregivers without the volunteer input of those who volunteer for the Council on Aging. Emily most certainly can share with you some of that information, the number of hours that we see. You may be reminded of me speaking before you for the last few years that we have excellent software that tracks everyone's volunteer hours and everyone who is utilizing the services of the Council on Aging. And by having that software, we can see exactly the need, the extent, and those who have been helping out for many, many years. So we're very blessed to have the staff that we have, the services, and we find that there's a huge, huge need in this community. As you look at the pictures on the screen, except for one person, we are all older adults. And many of us will be needing some of those services at some point outside of that one young lady in the middle. So we appreciate you being here. Our job is working with staff. We don't deal with operations, as you know. We are advisory, we're advocates for the services and the programs of the Council on Aging. Emily, was that a good wrap up?
Seems perfect to me. Yes. Do you want to jump into your other broader check-in with members? Next is your report.
Thank you. And it's just checking in with our members. Again, I'm missing a couple today. We will check in with those. And Larry, I'll address you a couple times during the meeting. all of the folks on the screen today are active volunteers for the Council on Aging, in addition to their roles as members of the council. And actually, I'd like very briefly, if you could, with Mr. Ballantyne's first meeting, starting with Ralph, please, if you would briefly state some of the volunteer activities that you are involved with at the Council on Aging. Mr. Smith.
Well, of course, I'm on this board. That in itself is a real trial. I also deliver lunches periodically, three or 4 days a week, to seniors who are shut in, to their great gratitude, I have to say. Some of these folks really depend on A, the lunches, and B, the social inaction or action. Other than that, I think that's about it for the council.
Actually, he's being very kind, Mr. Ballantyne. Anything that is asked of him to do, he does for the council. He's been involved many times in volunteer efforts, so we do appreciate it. Joanne, would you kindly let Mr. Ballantyne know the extent of your volunteer services? And you are actually volunteering every week, aren't you?
I'm on 2 afternoons a week on the phone, and I do take part in a lot of the different programs that the COA offers, and they're just excellent, educational and wonderful programs.
Mr. Ballantyne, if you would go into the lobby of the Council on Aging, you would see Ms. Lepore assisting. She does a great job, and she's very valuable to the staff. Finally, Ms. Chalaka, if you would kindly state some of the things that you have been involved in with the Council on Aging, we would appreciate that.
Not all of them, actually, as you'll wear me out.
No. It's fun working with the group, and I've had fun working with the honoring all the volunteers, planning the programs to honor them. That was kind of fun, and I try to do whatever Emily asked me to do if I have the time. So I enjoy it, and I enjoy all the people that I work with.
I love that Angie says, if I have time. She always has time. She has never refused an opportunity to assist the Council on Aging. So,
Richard, just a couple comments, if I may. You
please.
Brought up something. I'm encouraged. We've had a series of meetings on the treasure chest. As you know, I've been vocal trying to get that started again, and I'm encouraged. I think there's a good chance we'll get that going again in probably April, that time frame. I think that did do a lot to serve people that needed both to get rid of things and to pick up items that aren't necessarily good enough to go through family pantry, for instance, but are still very usable. So we've had an active committee. The other item that I'm encouraged by is we've had Megan Eldridge has taken on the role of our accessibility of the ADA coordinator. We've been lacking that as town staff support for some time. And we've had a couple other members have shown up to volunteers, and that's a critical committee for us. That's actually a regulatory committee that we have not filled for some time. And I know I keep pressing Emily, but I keep thinking on Council on Aging and our elderly people, there must be other folks that would be interested in participating. Because as you probably know, we have to have, I forget the percent, maybe 40% of the membership of the, we now call HARC, the Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee, need to have some handicap for that committee to go forward. But we're trying to, we need to do a lot of work in town. We've done a lot, but we need to improve sidewalks, walkways, and things of that kind. So just wanted to bring you up on those activities.
Thank you, Larry. Moving forward, we have a couple of items to discuss tonight when it comes to town meeting and budget for the Council on Aging. I will defer to Emily in her report. And before we move forward, Ralph?
Richard, you may not be aware, but Justin is aboard with us, also Carol.
Oh, I didn't see them. Okay. I'm sorry, let me pop in quick. Carol and Justin, if you two wish, we're sharing with Mr. Ballantyne some of the volunteer efforts that you're involved in And I apologize, I didn't see you on my screen. Ralph, please, thank you very much for making me aware of that. Justin or Carol, do you wish to weigh in on some of the volunteer efforts you have done on behalf of the Council on Aging?
Well, I'm I'm doing as much as I can, time permitting. I'm with Angie. You know, I've worked with the and worked on and at the customer appreciation, you know, events and so forth. I'm prepared to do that at any time. I volunteer whenever I can. You know, I have time constraints, but I'm there when you need me.
Again, Carol is always there. Anytime she's been asked to assist, she does. And Larry, what they're talking about, we do a volunteer appreciation recognition twice a year. Obviously, with COVID, we've had to modify what we're doing because we feel it's imperative that we do recognize the volunteers who are assisting both the staff and with providing services for our seniors, their caregivers, and their families. And they've done a great job. And the volunteers love being recognized for the work that they do. Now, also on the phone should be Lieutenant Justin White from the Harwich Fire Department, who is hopefully soon to be a full-time member of this board. He's been an alternate member. Lieutenant White, do you care to share as well some of the things that you have done?
Well, mostly I've just been a member of this committee, the alternate member, but I think my role is more kind of a liaison between the fire department and the COA board, and we actually have a great working relationship, and Emily's been very accessible, and we've thrown a lot of people who need services her way, and it's been it's like a nice safety net to that. Hey, we'll call the COA tomorrow, and we'll get you guys squared away and get some help in the house, and they're very receptive, and she does a great job. And Richard, I'm glad that you said you didn't see me on the screen, because you did call me a senior citizen earlier, but I'm only 40, so we're getting there. Let's not rush it though.
Well, and Larry, Lieutenant White plays a key role as a liaison. We also have a liaison with the police department, not on the actual committee. But we do so much with the public safety in the community, and the fire department has done an incredible job. And we're so very, very happy to have them as a part of our organization. I know that Lieutenant White is in the interview process. Again, hopefully very soon to be appointed as a full-time member of this board. Emily, why don't we move forward?
And I promise to follow up on that.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So I do have a couple of kind of noteworthy updates, not all of them positive, unfortunately. So as everyone is aware, we are impacted by the current Omicron surge here in terms of COA staff and operations. So back in December, the Board of Health passed a mask mandate that applies to staff, volunteers, and visitors in all town buildings. And that did have an immediate impact on our operations. Some of our programs weren't compatible with mask wearing. So the two that were most impacted were our Senior fitness class. That program was set to begin today, actually, but as kind of a higher intensity fitness program. Our instructor, in conjunction with myself, we made the decision not to run that program while a mask mandate is in effect, just for safety and health reasons. So that program is suspended until the mask mandate is lifted. The other program that was impacted was our on-site dining. So obviously you can't dine with a mask on, so we have suspended our on-site dining again for the duration of the mask mandate. We are still offering grab-and-go meals at full capacity. So our capacity is 45 meals per day. We're not reaching that. We're probably at between 30 and 40 per day right now, but that program is still in effect. So we're still meeting the nutrition need, but on-site meals, again, are suspended, at least for the time being. We've had a few other programs impacted by, again, more the surge than the mask mandate itself. So I included in your packets an overview of which programs were impacted. So Jill Brown's fitness class, Balance Boosters, Tai Chi, and Qigong join Senior Fit and our on-site meals and being suspended. So those programs are considered on pause. We were able to get through the sign up process. So we have a final list of participants who will be ready to join those programs as soon as we're ready to offer them. So we're hoping, based on what we're reading and data coming out about when the Omicron surge is expected to peak, we're targeting that week of February 14th to bring those other 4 programs back. We would be comfortable operating those programs even if the mask mandate is still in effect, but we're going to wait until this surge passes. In addition to the surge, we have had some staff impacts, either staff who are sick or who have household members who are sick. So we are operating not in full force. So if folks are, calling us and it's taking a little bit longer to return a phone call, we are short-staffed and have been since we've returned really from the Christmas break period. And I expect that to continue for a few more weeks as well. So our operations are impacted and are likely to be impacted for the next month or so. I'm hopeful that will resolve again within that mid-February timeframe, and we're looking forward to getting those programs running at full scale once it's safe to do so and once we have the staff capacity to do so. So that's really what we're at in terms of operations. I don't know if you have any questions on that.
Emily, if I could, Mr. Ballantyne, these programs are so integral for our seniors. We have many. I'll give an example. One woman who's 96 years old who lives at the Melrose down in Harwich Port, and she would look forward to the on-site dining program. Part of that is her socialization. She has no children who live on the Cape. She lives by herself and she takes advantage of these programs, and that is a big part of her socialization on a daily basis. I had a chance to speak to her when the program was suspended, and the nice part about it is that the COA was assisting in having a meal delivered to her. And actually, she was very happy because she's got a crush on the van driver. So it works out. She gets socialization. She gets to see her friend, the van driver. But it just really signifies how important these programs are to folks who wish to remain independent as long as they can. And that's a case in point, a woman who's 96 years old who relies on the daily programs of the Council on Aging. Emily, please continue. Anyone else have any questions of Emily on operations at this time? Ralph, please.
Emily, just one other thing. Let me volunteer if there are additional women who are coming in or folks who are coming in for lunch and need them delivered, let me know, okay? I can expand my route with no problem.
Thank you, Ralph. And we have expanded so when we were doing both on-site and grab and go, we were, again, you were really our only lunch delivery person, but now that we've suspended the on-site dining, we have expanded the deliveries just a little bit, again, mostly to target those folks who are coming on-site regularly, okay, but aren't coming for grab and go. So we have expanded that just a little bit, largely with your help. So thank you very much.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Ralph. Emily, continue, please.
All right. The next item under my report was a staffing update. I'm sad to report that one of our van drivers, John Chatham, has resigned. About a year ago, he moved off Cape and had been very kindly continuing to come once per week down to Harwich to ride for us. But the traffic and wear on his vehicle and that type of thing just became not worth it for him anymore. So he has resigned. He has served our COA for about 2.5 years. Diligently, passionately, and thoughtfully. So he is already missed, but I'm very thankful for his service to the council. We do have that position posted internally. It is a union position, so it does go through the internal posting process first. I did include that posting in your packet just for reference. The closing date for internal applicants is tomorrow, where it is a 1 day per week part-time non-benefited position. I am doubtful we will receive any internal applicants. So if we do, I'll be happy, of course, to go through the process, but I fully expect to be posting that for external applicants probably on Friday. We have arranged coverage with our other 2 van drivers for the next 3 weeks, beginning today and through February 2nd. We have coordinated coverage for that Wednesday transportation, but our 2 other van drivers, are otherwise engaged with other jobs or commitments. So if we're unable to fill the position quickly, I anticipate that our Wednesday transportation schedule will be disrupted from time to time. So there may be times where we're unable to offer transportation on Wednesdays specifically while this vacancy exist. So it will be a top priority to fill the position. I'm hopeful that we'll get some really great applicants. We'll get them through the CCRTA training, which is mandated as part of our lease agreement, and then get them trained and on the road. So it will be a period. I do expect some lapses in this service, but we'll be filling that position as quickly as possible. So I just wanted to let you know about that update, and that we're all wishing John very well now in his retirement. And then the next part of, oh, yes, Larry.
Emily, could you clarify for me the relationship between the Council on Aging, Transportation, and the Friends bus? How those are how you coordinate those two?
Sure. So they're totally separate, really. The Friends own their own minibus. Their minibus is driven by volunteers. The vehicle is owned by them, whereas we lease our vehicles through CCRTA. We have paid drivers who are on staff and go through a certain training process that's mandated by CCRTA. So they're kind of entirely separate. We schedule separately. We choose our routes separately and our scheduling separately. We certainly cross-refer. So the Friends do more. They do a really great socialization program where they go to fun places, whereas ours are more grocery store, pharmacy, medical appointments as needed. So we kind of serve different purposes, different routes, and that type of thing. So strong relationship, cross referrals common, but entirely separate otherwise.
Thank you.
Larry, also, just so you're aware that the same health and safety regulations that are in place from the Council on Aging also transfer over to the Friends of the Council on Aging. I'm the liaison from the Council on Aging to the Friends. The Friends advocate and assist in areas that we cannot utilize, and this additional transportation is great. It's one of the 3 top issues for our seniors, their families, and caregivers is nutrition, and socialization. So it plays a very large role. Emily?
All right, so I did want to make sure we kept the fiscal year 23 budget process kind of at the forefront of our minds and discussions. When we met in December, I did give a full overview of the initial request coming from the Council on Aging. I did include that information in your packet again, more just for reference. The next step in the process is for department heads, so for myself, to meet with the town administrator and the finance director. The town administrator has requested some supplemental narrative and information to accompany those meetings. So I included the questions that he's asked in your packet. I'm still working on that narrative, and I'll be happy to share it with you when it's complete, but you can see kind of the core issues that he'll be targeting in those initial meetings. And I expect those to happen within the next week or 2. I think they're quickly upcoming. So I will keep you all up to date on that. Just to kind of go through the questions, you're all well versed in our core mission. I won't spend time on that. There's a question as to whether anything in the budget goes beyond our core services, and I'm confident in saying that there's nothing in the request that I submitted that goes beyond our core service. That funding is all essential to just our very most basic operations. And in fact, to comply with the directive to level fund relative to our fiscal year 22 appropriation, we did have to make some cuts, specifically in the area of nutrition, which is the one I'm most concerned about. As you know, as we've talked about probably ad nauseum, when we were at the height of the pandemic and we had supplemental funding available from sources like FEMA and the CARES Act, we were able to serve 70 people per day. When we lost that supplemental funding, we dropped our capacity down to 45 meals per day, and that's based on our town appropriation. And in order to comply with the directive to level fund, I did have to reduce funding for that line item to compensate for things out of my control, like contractual salary increases or postage increases or bulk fuel increases. So really one of the only areas left was that nutrition line item. So if the budget goes forward at that level funded rate, our meal capacity will be back down to 40 meals per day. So it's continuing to dwindle. Something that I did discuss in December was the enhancement of services component of the budget process. So the enhancement of services area is where department heads were allowed to propose budget increases that go above and beyond that level funding. So I did submit 2 enhancements of services. One was on the expenditure side, and that was about $31,000 in the nutrition line item, and that was designed to get us back up to that 70 meal capacity. At the height of COVID, we were always meeting or exceeding that 70 meal capacity. That shows me that there is a significant nutrition need that we are not currently meeting. And I think it's critical that we meet that. I mean, that is one of the most basic needs of our community. So I did request that funding. The other enhancement of services component that I requested was an add to staff. That's the program specialist 2 position I've been discussing for about 2 years now. And that would provide us the staff capacity to operate both a community distribution lunch program and an on-site or grab and go model. We've talked about how a lot of the folks who participated in the delivery program aren't coming on site. Sometimes that's because they're homebound. Sometimes that's because they don't want to come out or they're not comfortable coming out, especially during a COVID surge like we're experiencing right now. But the need is still there. And I really think it's incumbent upon us as a department designed to meet the needs of seniors to find a way to meet this need. So that position would provide the staff capacity for that, as well as to really expand our programming and expand the intentionality behind our volunteer program. We do rely on over 100 volunteers, but the coordination is a little bit piecemeal, and we could get a lot more out of that dedicated, passionate base of volunteers if we had that intentional, orchestrated process behind the recruitment, training, assigning of tasks, and that type of thing. So that's really what that role is designed to do. So we couldn't really do one without the other. We don't have the staff capacity to serve 70 meals, so they're in tandem. So I have proposed both of those as an enhancement of services within the fiscal 23 budget request. So I'll be happy to share that narrative out to all of you once it is complete, and of course to update you on that next stage, which is the meetings with the administrator and the finance director. And then of course, we'll look forward to our budget hearings with the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee in the spring. So I don't know if you have any questions or feedback on that.
Larry, any questions?
No, I think Emily's well explained it and the need is there. I think we just have to figure out how we work it through the budget with everything else.
Larry, in my role as a member of the Board of Assessors, we deal with a number of our older adults in the community. And we have a number of programs. We have a senior tax exemption. We have a hardship exemption that we utilize. And the Board of Assessors met last night without getting into breaching any executive committee requirements. We granted 4 hardship exemptions last night to seniors in this community. The average income of those 4 people, Social Security, was $9,000 a year. And people at times don't understand the extent of the need in this community, especially for many of our seniors. Many of these are very proud seniors, you know, who are in their late 80s, early 90s. They retired 30 years ago, 25 years ago. At a time, they thought they could live on Social Security. And when they're paying their taxes and make a decision whether to pay their taxes, their medication, their food, it's communities, I believe, and I think that the council believes, has a responsibility to those seniors. And that's why the 3 main topics of nutrition, you know, and transportation and socialization is so important. And that's why these programs, we're very stringent upon trying to get them implemented to meet the needs of not only those seniors, but their caregivers and their families as well. We have many of our adults who are here in the Cape independently family. Every time we remind either our members of the board or our community of those folks who live among us that it's imperative that we do so. Anybody else? Any questions of Emily?
I think you've preached to me in the past as well that we tend to live in a community. Sometimes people are house rich and cash poor, getting real difficult. Sometimes those, keep remembering that, because those people fall below the radar too. You have to be careful.
Emily, anything further from the members of the committee? If not, Emily?
Richard, I would just love to piggyback on something you just mentioned, because I do think the financial need is something that's often hidden in our community, and certainly many people are very well off and very comfortable, but a significant portion of our community is not. And just to highlight another area that the Friends really just stepped in to assist us with, we do run a volunteer medical transportation program that has just resumed in November. And the way that that works is that volunteers transport residents in their own vehicles. They assume the risk with their own insurance, the own wear and tear on their cars, their own time, and the riders compensate them a very small amount, between $5 if it's local, $15 if they're in the Hyannis or Wellfleet areas, and that's just to reimburse for gas. And we've had quite a few people who were unable to pay $5. They had to wait until they received their Social Security check at the end of the month to even contemplate sparing an additional $5 for that service to get to an essential medical appointment. So I know I spend $5 without much thought, but there are many people in our community who don't have that luxury. And so I think that need is there, and so that the ways that we as a town and we as a Council on Aging can support those residents are critical in an often hidden way. So I just wanted to highlight that as a very salient example of the need that's come to our attention very recently. So if anyone has other budget questions, I'm happy to answer them, or I can jump to the next part of my report.
Why don't you move on with the ARPA funding request?
Great. So I assume you're all familiar with the American Rescue Plan Act funds that are trickling down to the county and municipal level. So the county has their own funds that they're working with, but the town of Harwich has also received a direct appropriation. We currently have, I think, about $630,000 and set to receive an equivalent amount in June or July. I know the Board of Selectmen, not the COA board, are considering the best ways to allocate those funds. And the town administrator did announce at a department head meeting that departments were free to, submit their own requests for how those funds might be allocated specifically at the town level. I did submit a request to the town administrator and the finance director yesterday. I included that request in your report, but it is for a full-time clinical social worker or mental health counselor. It's meant to be, I'm not proposing this as a permanent add to staff. I'm proposing this specifically as a time-limited staff addition for the duration of the ARPA funding period, not to extend beyond that. And really this proposal came from a conversation I had with our town nurse, Sue Giselle. When I initially thought of submitting a request, the immediate thought was, well, we really need some additional public health nursing. That Sue her schedule is burdened. It was burdened pre-COVID. It is burdened now more than ever. And so I sought her input in that conversation. And what she said to me was that what we needed wasn't another town nurse. What we needed was mental health support, that a significant portion of her caseload is managing a mental health crisis rather than other physical health components, cognitive health components, broader public health needs. She said, really the crisis is in mental health. And so that's what led me to propose this mental health counselor position. This is not a role that currently exists within the Council on Aging. We don't have clinical social workers or clinical mental health counselors. The town does have that in the youth services department with Sheila House, but for folks who age out of that service with her, so really again that age 20 or 22 and beyond, there's not a town met service to meet those needs. And that's what we're seeing on a huge scale, both directly result of the pandemic and just in light of a shortage of other resources to meet those needs in Harwich and across Cape Cod. So that does fall within kind of the enumerated uses of ARPA funds that focus on responding to a public health emergency or bolstering public sector capacity. So I did, identify the need and propose this position to meet that need and outline some of the costs associated with what that position would look like annually. So I have submitted that to the administrator and the finance director. I'm not entirely sure what their process will be for considering requests from departments, but I'll certainly keep you up to date on how those conversations evolve. But I don't know if anyone has questions relative to that need or that request.
And that proposal is at actually the last page, I believe, of the packet today. And Larry, did you get a copy of today's packet?
I think I did.
Okay, because a couple
And
things.
I'll review
I would,
that again.
if you have an opportunity, go ahead, sir.
No, I mean, those are certainly, you know, the ARPA funds, as Emily's mentioned, once they're approved, we're just going through that process now, but those will run, I think, for 3 or 4 years. So limited time makes a lot of sense at this point. It's not a short time frame to use. We have a couple of years to submit it, and then we have several years after that to utilize the funds. So that's a great proposal.
Valentine, if you have an opportunity to look at that packet, I would draw your attention to the Council on Aging newsletter, which gives you an idea of the breadth of some of the programs that we're working on. And Carol Thayer, who is a member of our council, is a realtor. And I know that she also dealt last year with some of the folks, seniors, who ended up selling their houses, frankly, because of COVID and the isolation, and the folks who slid from that isolation into clinical depressions as a result of it. And Carol, if you wish to speak of that, I know that I dealt with, and we talked about you having dealt with some clients who do the same thing.
Oh, there's no question that the need for counseling for seniors is definitely, there's definite need there. Yes, I did deal with, you know, several parties last year who, because of COVID and just plain life circumstances, were forced into the sale of their homes and into smaller places. And, you know, we try to counsel them that these are opportunities, not necessarily, you know, bad opportunities. It's an opportunity to scale down, make less work for yourself. We do the best we can in counseling people in that situation. But we are not professionals. We are professional realtors. We are not professional counselors. And a great deal of our time is spent in counseling with people that are making these big life changes. And I think it would certainly be a benefit to our seniors to have an outside source that they can go to. I mean, in many cases, our counseling is perceived as perhaps a little self-involved, you know, because we're involved in the sale and the purchase perhaps of another property. So our involvement might not be perceived as without personal influence. I really think that being able to go to an outside source that could help them adjust to this kind of thing would be an enormous service. And we're seeing more and more of that, and you know, as we go along. And along with that, of course, is the lack of available housing for a lot of these people, either in senior housing or in just plain a smaller unit housing, you know, apartments and so forth, apartments, condominiums. We don't have a big supply of that, but we've got a big supply of seniors that need it. So, I mean, I think a counselor is certainly a great help in that area.
Richard, if I may, I do, by the way, I do read the newsletter religiously. It's a great job. That's a great newsletter. Angie and I are both involved with Outer Cape Health Services, and they see the same demand there, which they're trying to help with additional staffing, but they're having, it's difficult, and even if they do more, it's not nearly enough for what people need.
Larry, last year we had a gentleman in town who was a native of this community, very visible, and we came to find out that he had been sleeping in the lobby or the ATMs of the banks here in Harwich Port. He was homeless at the time, and thankfully we got Sue Drusell involved, but Sue is a town nurse, and she's not a clinical social worker. In trying to get services, we reached out to Elder Services, and you know, some of the businesses got involved as well. But it needs a special person who understands the needs of someone who's going through a situation like that. And Outer Cape Health is just exceptional. The problem is trying to get someone in on an emergency basis is very, very difficult. And to try to get a psychologist or a psychiatrist today on the Cape is almost impossible without a 2 to 3 month wait. So this could be a stopgap for the Council on Aging, take some of the burden off the town nurse, who frankly is not trained to deal with that. She does it. She does an exceptional job, but it's not what she's trained to do. So we will be supporting Emily's request and ask you to look at it carefully, and if you're so inclined, to advocate for it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different role than Out of Cape Health. They would hopefully help each other out, but it's not. They're both very much needed, is my point. My other point was the need is very much there. There's no, we can all cite example after example, which is a sad thing. It's so easy to do.
Any other members wish to comment? Emily, why don't you move on to what our volunteer needs are at the moment?
Thank you. So just 2 needs I wanted to highlight today. We do see just continuing increased demand for the volunteer medical program. So we have a great set of volunteers who have been vetted and gone through the process. We're looking to onboard just 1 more. And I know I've spoken just at length in the past about the process. It is intensive, it is time consuming, and it is a risk assumed by the volunteer that's really higher than any other volunteer role we coordinate. But we have folks who are dedicated and passionate to do it. So we're looking to onboard 1 more person to serve as a volunteer medical driver. They would pick a resident up at their home, transport them to medical appointments anywhere from Hyannis to Wellfleet, and then bring them back to their home after the conclusion of the appointment. We don't ask anyone to transport a passenger with mobility constraints, who's been under anesthesia or really in any other way inhibited from operating fully independently. They can get into the vehicle, out of the vehicle, and manage their appointment on their own. They just need transportation assistance. So that's the scope of the role. And again, we're looking to onboard just 1 more person. We typically ask drivers to drive between 2 and 3 appointments per month. And those appointments can be an hour, they might be multiple hours, but we always confirm with the driver before scheduling it. So we make sure that you're available, that it's a place you're comfortable traveling to, and that you would like to take on that role. So we're looking for 1 more of those. And then we're also looking for a few more volunteers to assist in our friendly visitor program. So this is our program where we match volunteers with particularly isolated residents, and we try to find folks who have similar interests, similar activities they might want to do together, a similar background, or maybe they're wildly different and they're just looking forward to getting to know someone with a different life experience. And we're currently offering that service. It had been largely phone-based or Zoom-based throughout pandemic, but we have started to have more in-home or in-person get-togethers as well. So really it's a role that could match anyone's comfort level, whether they wanted to do it fully remotely or wanted to be having some more in-person contact. And as staff, we do facilitate that relationship. So we'll make the introduction, we'll set kind of the scope and boundaries of that relationship. And we're here to be involved as needed, but people have developed just tremendous relationships, many-year relationships from this program. And we'd love to onboard a few more people to participate in that program. And that's really all we're looking for volunteers at this point.
Ralph, I would appreciate, with your massive social media following, that you post that on your social media.
On my Insta quote.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, do we have any old business to come before us today? Anything new for today? Nothing new then. At this point, I will go around from what I can see on my screen. I'm going to start in my bottom left, Angelina Chilaka. Angie, anything else for us today?
No, so far I'm good. I'm pleased with what Emily and the staff are doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Angie. Joanne Lepore, anything to add today? You're on mute, Joanne.
Oh, it's nice to see everybody today, even if it is on a screen.
Well, I may be over there a little bit later today, Joanne. I'll try to look in on you.
Okay.
Ralph Smith.
I have nothing except I'm looking forward to the men's breakfast once this COVID thing gets behind us.
You and me both, sir. You and me both. And to our two faceless members of the board, Carol, do you have anything?
No, not today, Richard. I'm good. I think Emily's doing a fantastic job, and I'm 100% in favor of her budget request. So anything
Thank you.
she needs is fine with me. So
Lieutenant White, are you still on?
I'm here and I have nothing to add. Thank you.
You, sir? Hearing none. Mr. Ballantyne, we'll allow last comments for you today, sir.
I think I have my marching orders and what to advocate, so I will catch up on the details.
Thank you very much for being with us today, taking the time. And once again, thank each and every one of you for your time, which is the most important thing that you have. And again, I thank Carol for stepping in the last couple of months to assist in chairing the meeting and for all of the hard work that you all do. If there's nothing else, Emily, do you have anything else for us?
Just thank you, and I'll hope that by next month, maybe we can be back in person. I certainly enjoy sitting in a room with you, but happy to have other methods to connect in the meantime.
God willing. Mr. Smith, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
You have that motion, sir.
Is there a
and I
second?
will second it.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye. And Ralph, I need an oral. Ralph?
Aye.
Aye.
Carol is aye. Joanne?
Aye.
Angie?
Aye.
Lieutenant White?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. That's unanimous. Thank you all for being with us today, and we'll talk to everyone soon.